Yeah! Oh my gosh, we are live. Hello, loves. It's Sonia G. Welcome to an amazing live for Moon Babes on a Tuesday. Well, it's Sonia G. Godfrey and the Moon Babes now. It sounds like a band. I love it. We're going to figure out how to say it in a way that rolls off the tongue. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For this, we're having a Q&A for the topic of Queen season. I've been sharing a lot of content, a lot of knowledge, a lot of bits, a lot of reels lately about Queen season because, of course, this is the time of year where I launch and open up for registration one of the most powerful feminine divine power courses, which is called Sovereign Queen. And we were red for Sovereign Queen. It's the red course. It's the deep into the blood types, the blood functionalities, the blood cycles, the feminine blood magic, everything that's on the inside. It's like that priestess kind of magic. And why do we do it this time of year? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about blood in like the bigger cycles of life. We're going to talk about what it means to actually claim sovereign power. And I'm going to answer any questions that you guys have. All right. Hi, loves. And welcome to all the Sovereign Queen alumni. Anyone that is here that has been on Sovereign Queen. Yay. And definitely share this video. I don't know why Instagram Live, Instagram doesn't pop the notifications for the lives for people anymore. It is like one of the strangest things, but you know what? We're going to keep talking about things and you know where to find me. So come here. Follow, whatever you like now, all of the notifications and whatever, please comment because it's so crazy the way that it's shifting, but it's not like I'm going to stop talking about the things that I'm talking about. So I still want to give you guys these moments because we've done this for years now where we hang out, right? And we talk about the cool shit that we feel like is necessary to talk about in our world in ascension. And of course, we talk about it within certain frameworks because we're still having a public conversation. But on the inside of the Telegram groups, inside of the courses, we talk about all the unfiltered shit because this is how we do it. So definitely share, love, comment, all of the things. Amazing. Yes. Okay, cool. Michelle said I received the notification you were live. That's awesome. I think it depends on settings and everything, but also, I know you guys know how to find it here, and this will also go on YouTube. So, amazing. Let's talk about Queen season. So, I want to tell you why I call it the Queen season, and I'm figuring out how to sit here because we're just getting set up in the house, and there's a whole lot of things going on. You guys know that I just barely put together this little corner, but in real time, there's literally a vacuum and all sorts of things that are going on here. This room is wildness, total wildness. Maybe I'll show you for a second. Look, there's literally a vacuum right there. Couches everywhere. I mean, this corner is good, so, that's good. I cleaned it up for you. And this is the vibe. I had to pick a picture to put right there for you, and this is such a vibe of the cycles of feminine magic, right? So kind of to get in the vibe of this. So let's talk about Queen season. Why do I call it Queen season? Why is it Queen season? And what is all of this about? So the world knows it as, Halloween, the time period where the veil between worlds thins, and it's become this I think in Mexico they celebrate, for example, or in different indigenous cultures celebrate actually the ancestral stories and the days of the dead. In Europe, where I grew up in Italy, we have the Day of the Dead, right? So we connect with the ancestors on the other side. We remember them. It's kind of like this season where we go through the other side. In the US, it's Halloween, and it's become the scary witchy stories. But what does it all actually mean, and why did all the cultures in the world start these traditions? It's because it's the time, and this is in October, it starts in October, it is eclipse season. When this eclipse, it happens every year. We have like in July, after the solstice, right? This is like, it all starts to add up, and everything is constantly, obviously in ascension, we're constantly spiraling up. But the solstice that we have every year kind of sets, forth the direction that we're going. That's in June, right? And then in July, we have end of July, beginning of August, we have the heliacal rising of Sirius. We have the beginning of the new galactic year. New information comes in. We have I'm taking you on the longer conversation of this. We have the Lion's Gate. And then after the Lion's Gate, we have it starts to, like, things start to transpire because Sirius just came in through our reality and is pulling in new information. So all of a sudden, everything in the cycles, right, starts to recode. By the time we get to October, right, in September, we have the equinox, and the September equinox and the full moon of the equinox are always very important because all of a sudden we're recalibrating. The planets are always making fucking moves at that time, right? There's super moons. Everything is closer to the Earth's axis. We have like, the equinoxes are powerful because the sun is closest to, the solstices were a little bit further and the equinoxes are close. And so all the knowledge and all the information, it recalibrates, right? Because we get our information pushed through, transmitted literally in light transmissions through the plasma rays of the sun. So then if we've added it all up, right? Now we're like, whew, big things are shaking. And here it comes, and it's what I call queen season, and it's October. Now the sun and the planets are making moves with the sun. So, and like there's conjunctions, there's moves, there's all sorts of alignments that happen. There's the sun and the moon playing, right? The feminine and the masculine, and there's these eclipses. Right? And so it's solar eclipse and there's lunar eclipses, and it's all of these resets that happen. And all of a sudden, because of the ways that the planets, which weave the stories, right? They hold these stories. I don't like the way that astrology has evolved much in the current world, things. It's become this, I don't know, it's become something that's like holds people in a box instead of like evolution and actually integration. But let's do it our way, right? So the planets are holding stories and they're holding codes, and we're weaving them back in. So every time into our being, into our existence, into the embodiment, we're remembering who we are. So every time planets make moves and there's eclipses and everything, we are reintegrating parts of us. Come around October, we are now reintegrating these parts of us that come from the beyond. All of a sudden, everything is closer. Right? So this is why the veil's thin, right? Pluto's always making moves like this time of year. There's always things that happen, and a lot of shifts happen, right? And it's like there's a lot of timeline jumps, a lot of possibilities. And because of all of this, there's like this energy that gets created in the atmosphere in October and towards the end of October, where we have a gateway into ancestral knowledge. This is why the different cultures celebrate, Days of the Dead and Halloweens and ancestral ceremonies all around, because we get messages, which means we as light workers in ascension, we are pulling in new knowledge. We are streaming in new light. We are reintegrating knowledge of the ancestors, but not just of the ancestors in the past, because now we understand that ancestors also come from the future. Time is very wavy, right? So where does all of this connect? Where does all of this connect? Where does it all come together, right? Why do we care about any of this? Because it's all inside of the physical body, inside of your blood. It's your blood line and your blood type, okay? In the expression, when our spirit came in our body and we were a baby, okay, and we expressed our spirit, our soul, expressed into this body that we had to grow into, we expressed different codings. They became active. So now we have eyes like this, hair like this, a body like this, right? We have genetics inherited from our parents. We have stories that we've inherited from our ancestors. So all of it comes together and it all runs through our blood. It's coded in the white cells of the blood, okay? Our genes, the stories, the imprints, all of this stuff, it's all in there. Well, now that we're in ascension, you're like, that's great. There's a whole lot of knowledge about that. What's happening is now that we're in ascension, right? And it's cool to know where you're from and where your lineage is and like all of the things that have to do with the earth stuff, right? If you're a starseed, you're like, wait, where do I come from? Am I Orion? Am I Lyran? Am I, right? Like we get to track all of that, which has been very significant. Now we understand that in that tracking, all of that expresses in our blood, okay? And as we do the ancestral healing work and we recode the stories in the blood, now we are unlocking new available knowledge in the blood, new available power, right? We have to be able to handle this power. We have to understand what it does because it's coming awake. And what happens when we don't use it is that we go, la, 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 crazy, because it's like, what the, right? And it feels like you're kind of like disassociating with reality and you're like, you want to understand ascension, but then you kind of want to cocoon back into like your life. Like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. And I feel so disconnected from this world, but I don't really feel like I can ground into my world the way that I've understood it. Like it causes these like reset moments and kind of like regrounding moments where it's about our ability to understand what is actually literally encoded within us, how to utilize it, how to activate it, and how to realign it with our higher knowledge that also resonates through the entire zodiac, all of the planets, right? All the ancestral knowledge, but our ancestors are also planetary ancestors, right? Because if you're a star seed, right? And if you're a star, and I know I'm saying things like receive the activations as you're like listening to this, because I always say things that are loaded, right? But so understand this, that as we expand, we understand that our ancestors are not just like here on earth, or they're not just like in the stars. They're like, I mean, it's planetary, right? Who understands that at one point of their history, of their soul, they were like a galaxy, right? You understand that our higher consciousness is infinite. We are immense. And we're beginning to awaken all this knowledge in the blood. So the blood types are relevant. And I talk about this, and I have reels on my page. Go and look at the ones that I've like shared recently, right? And I always say this: everyone that has Rh negative blood has never fucking belonged in this world, right? Those of us that carry Rh negative blood, which whatever blood type you have, you also have a positive or a negative. We carry coding that reconciled outside of this world things into this world, right? And this is like the baseline of it. A lot of people are understanding it. And then there's different layers of A, of B, of AB positive, AB negatives, right? Like the O type, what does it mean for you? It affects everything. The way that we activate our blood, our DNA, therefore our blood, right? Changes everything. It's the way that we process the information through in our physical body. So it's very, very important. And that's the reason why, a lot of the things that are happening in the world right now, that's what they're targeting. They're targeting like the RNA, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these things, like the little things that like, right, have been the 2020, the stuff that started in 2020, which we still can't say on the internet apparently, but they target genetic manipulation because certain people understand that as we do this work Inside of our blood, inside of our DNA, as we understand the power of our blood, the fact that there's medicine, right? Like in the blood, we can resolve so much with the knowledge, the deep knowledge of the blood. Then, right, like everything changes in the world, which is the part where we're at, because everything is changing in the blood. But we're at this point where we have to hold our sovereign power. And this is what happens every queen season, which is October, November, and December. These are the months that I call queen season, okay? So wherever you're at in the world, October, November, December, queen season. Because we start on the 1010 ancestral gateway. And all of a sudden, this is when the portal opens up. This is right during the eclipses. And the portal opens up. This happens every year. Okay, so this is like all the time, every year, this comes up. This is why I launched this course called Sovereign Queen every year, because it's timeless. It continues to happen because of the cycles of our planet, right? Just like the sun rises every morning. So like there are things that continue to happen because of the movements of where we're at in the planet. So on the 1010, we have this amazing connection of weaving timelines where we get to reconnect with our ancestral power, and we can weave it through into our system. Like if we do the healing, the deep ancestral healing, now we have things to shift. Now the queen season is a crown on kind of season, right? But if we kind of just be like, this is too much, I have so many things going on, right? Then what happens is you try and understand things, but it's not really understanding because it's information. Information is great, but information is just it. Have you ever heard people that talk about something that they don't know? They're just talking about a thing, but they don't know it. They don't have the wisdom from it. They don't have an experience of it. They haven't embodied it, right? So all they're saying is, oh, I read this. How much do we see about that on the internet, right? Like, I read this hit me. I saw this. Oh, I heard it said this way. This hit me. Yeah, and then what did you do with it, right? And then what? Like, that's a good beginning. That's a good start. But, you know, we are like infinite light beings incarnated in these amazing technologically advanced human bodies that we are figuring out how to pilot from the inside of our spirit and our higher selves and all the layers of who we are. Like we got to figure out how to shift the gears in here, right? To activate the technology that is the divine human blueprint in our bodies. And so it's like, you're not going to change any of that with just information. Information will not do anything. Light is information. Light codes are information. The way that you actually change the story of who you are for the higher frequencies, the way that you shift yourself from the way that you're manifesting reality in the now to a higher manifested reality, is you have an experience so profound that it imprints in your blood, in your cellular system. You feel it, you know it, you live it so profoundly that it changes you forever. And the activation of that coding inside of your DNA, inside of your blood, inside of your cells remains. And when that remains, you have now shifted, right? You are now never the same person. You know, there's events in our lives that shift us. Usually when we think about these things, it's like, it's easy to think of like traumatic events or accomplished, you know, some kind of big accomplishment events that now, you know, you can do this. Or, you know, I'll never do that again. Holy shit, I learned my lesson, right? We have these events that are like that. In ascension and in the creation of the light body, this is how it's the same thing. We can't just be like, oh, I heard that this is what happens inside and this is why our DNA, you know, oh yeah, I know about that. Like this is kind of like how it goes and then our cells move or something, right? And then the light codes, like new things inside of our DNA, that will blow out your nervous system. You're going to start piling information without utilizing it. How many people do you know that are like rabbit hole researchers And then it's like, but did your life change? But do you feel better? Are you happy? Are you vibrating at a higher frequency that's creating the reality that you want to live in, the reality of new earth? Or are you just tired and exhausted and like you're functioning on the outside, but on the inside, right, there's a cleanup job that needs to be done? That's what happens. Nothing can be out of alignment. We have to be in full alignment in order to actually like manifest this celestial reality on the outside. And so it's important to understand this, because it's otherwise it's like, well, can I just read a book? I don't know. Are you going to throw up and write a whole new life story and sweat and fight for it and make declarations and you know, like actually, are you going to have a physical experience? Which, by the way, is why a lot of people go and like do like ayahuasca ceremonies or whatever, because it has such an impact on your body, right? Medicine journeys, they have such an impact on your body that you have to learn something from it, because it's so wild and so crazy that it causes you to shift in some way. Now, is that necessary? No, it's not necessary if you know how to do that in other ways. But if you don't know how to do it in other ways, then you're going to end up in some kind of, wild ceremony, because something at some point will have to move you, right? I choose to move myself from sovereign power. I choose to teach this, right? How to harness the coding, the knowledge, the power of our spirit, of our body, of our mind, of our heart, and utilize that for fucking good. Because when you know how to do that, you don't need fucking medicine. You don't need anything. You can have a personal reality shift in the middle of whatever fucking weather is happening on the planet. In the middle of any crisis, you have tools, skills, and knowledge, and you know what to do. Period. That's power. That's sovereign power, right? The ability to actually have the resources within you, that's different. So these are the things. This is the overall feeling of sovereign queen. And it's that utilizing your sovereign power in ways that you may not know that you have available, right? A lot of women now understand that we sync our menstrual cycle with the phases of the moon. That when it's a new moon, if you have your bleed on a new moon, you're beginning, it's called a white cycle, and you're beginning a new phase. When you sync your bleed, because your body will do this, or you can consciously do this on a full moon, you're on a red cycle. This is a clearing cycle. And a lot of us in Ascension, we flip, right? And so things are not regular, because like we hit these moments where we are literally syncing with planetary functions, with moon functions, right? Like we start to sync and we utilize our power in a greater way. Now, understanding that, yeah, okay, I'm in a cleansing phase, and I'm in a new, like starting new beginnings phase. That's really good. But that's like, the beginning, and you start to chart and understand what's going on in your body. And these are things we talk about inside Sovereign Queen, by the way. So with you flip to the new moon. Yeah. And so sometimes you'll have like 6 weeks, right? Sometimes it's fast because it's like, oh, my body's going with the new moon. Sometimes it's like, I'm on the full moon. And then you'll stay a few cycles, because it's like, okay, now we're in cleansing, or now we're in new beginning, right? So you understand, like the blood cycles inside of us sync with the moon. You know how powerful that is? Like, it's like, we start to literally work with the cycles of the earth and the moon. And so there's a lot of things that you can do with your blood once you start to understand this, right? Not just like journal and phase and understand your intentions and what to eat. And, there's so much with it. But because I'm here to teach you the metaphysical aspects of it all, right? There's powerful knowledge to actually have. There's rituals that are sacred rituals that you can have, which we will not talk about publicly, here, because this is a very sacred and special moment for every woman to understand the depths of, this power that we hold within us. But this is also one of the things that happens is rarely do women understand the power that they hold in their blood cycles and the ways to utilize it And then, right, it's like menopause, and the world constantly pushes menopause, and how many people have hysterectomies and like all these things, and it's like that's not natural. But what happened, and like there's medical reasons, obviously there's always, things, but on the broader conversation of this, right, there's a reason we birth things. This is a portal that we have literally in our womb. And this year, I'm going to get deeper into it inside of Sovereign Queen. So I'm going to explain more of the connections that happen, and the way that the new energy is weaving through our womb and through the gates that are opening up in our higher chakra pillar consciousness, which is an extraordinary thing. But the things that we're able to bring on earth through the power of being a woman, through actually harnessing it, it's extraordinary. Not understanding this, it's overwhelming. Not knowing how to utilize actually the resources inside of you, only knowing a piece of it, right? When you know this much, it feels like, oh yeah, I know this much, I'm good. Like I kind of understand it, but then you don't have the processing power. You don't have the engines to it. Right. And so I know that there's a lot of people out there that are kind of talking about these things. And if they're interesting to you, I urge you to go and look at the course page for Sovereign Queen and feel into it, because the level of knowledge that is inside that course will transform your life and the way you hold your power, the way you do your feminine ness on planet Earth, the way that you harness your power, the way that you live it, the way that you sync your rhythms, right, with planetary functions, but also beyond that you understand that our blood is linked to our psychic abilities. Our blood is linked, and our blood types are linked to our psychic abilities. Once you understand this and you start to utilize, right, and I have this all in a manual for you inside of Sovereign Queen. You start to understand your children. You start to understand your spouses. You start to understand the people around you. You understand what their mission and their purpose is, right? Like it's literally coded inside of them, which is so wild. So inside this course, we actually have a moment where we do a blood type test. And there's I teach you all how to do this because it's so inherently important to understand that, right? And so there's so many things that come from that. But when we have a lot of women blow out their adrenal functions, and there's a lot of tiredness, and there's a lot of overwhelm. We run a wild amount of information inside of our bodies that the men physical body simply does not have in their system. We have a different processing capacity inside of the woman's body, right? And I know that different people identify in different ways, but if you are living inside of a female body on this planet, you have access to a wild framework of reality that does not exist inside of a man's body. They run on different circuitry. And this is the reason why our circuitry was unplugged by way of frequency control, and the priestess society was taken away and the patriarchy was installed, because there's also overpowered situations, which we definitely saw in the feminist movement, etc., etc. There's a lot of people that take things to extreme and to distortions. Power can always be abused, but power can also be utilized correctly. And we are here in that moment in time where we are on the opposite side of the spectrum of the cosmic clock of where Atlantis was, where we are figuring out if this time, incarnated in this physical body, we can fucking hold this power and we can utilize the circuitry correctly, right? Once we figure out and not repeat the same power mistakes, right? The same power things that happen in Atlantis. So we're here to harness this power. Once we understand this, once our body unlocks, once our blood heals, right, from the inheritance that we've had in this physical body, the inheritance of our ancestors, the inheritance of our past lives, right? How many things run through our blood that are now running through us? We get to heal it. I don't care if you I don't care. It doesn't matter if you don't know who your ancestors are. It doesn't matter if you don't know your parents. The stuff is running inside of your physical body. It runs you, right? So it's time that we understand how all of this links and how the expression of it can be utilized, because guess what? All of the bad people, quote unquote, right? The people that are playing the bad guys part in this reality, they're doing fucking phenomenal with their crazy ass technologies right now. And they've got all sorts of frequency control technologies. They got weather manipulation technologies. They got like all of the sorts of satellites out in the atmosphere. They have a lot going on. Guess what we have? We have the ability to activate the divine human blueprint inside of our body, which will inherently be able to dismantle all of that technology. We have it fucking in us, right? This is the work. This is the work. And that's why, right, they have kept information so like unavailable. And now that the information came out, it's become disinformation because they don't want, people to know. But our physical human body is the most amazing technology that we can possess. So it's learning how to connect the circuitry. And because we're star beings, right, it all is connected together. And so let me look at some of the questions. Sometimes I get really passionate. Okay, it's a lot of love and a lot of applauses. I love you guys. That's awesome. Okay, if you have questions, you can definitely post them. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about this. So if things that have to do with the blood, we have box elder bugs right over here that are like in this house everywhere. So if you have, if you are feeling like, so what does this manifest like? I want to help you like understand if, this queen season is like wanting to come to you with something new, right? If it feels like you're stagnant, if it feels like that there's a power awakening inside of you, but you don't know what to do with it, you don't know how to utilize it, you're kind of like scared of your own power, but it's there, this is a course you want to be in, right? This is that let's heal the blocks and the unseen things and literally change who you are from the inside, from your blood, having such a powerful and profound experience in a way that is safe, in a way that is sacred. First, I teach you all the ways that we do this, and then we actually do it together, right? So it's not just teachings, it's an experiential kind of course. And then everything in your blood will shift. The codes in your blood will shift. You'll be able to do different things with the blood that runs through you. And this is where everything changes in the reality around you, and the blocks will no longer be there because you will no longer be a match for them, because it has literally changed inside of you, in your cellular system, in your blood, in your codes. Do you understand how that goes? Like, that's how we shift things from the inside to shift them on the outside, right? So sometimes when you do belief work, it works for a while. If the belief and the affirmations and like everything that you're doing, it's like belief work is everything. If the belief work gets to be an experience in your body, gets to be a recoding, right? Of like, everything coded in my blood says this, but I am now establishing this and activating this new belief, this new way of life. And this is, I'm going to support it. Now I'm going to sustain it. And my power matches the power of the work that I did. Therefore, I can sustain it. I can have my crown on. And now I live life differently. And now those blocks don't show up anymore. Now those blocks no longer are necessary because you have removed the internal blocks. But a lot of times it takes a lot of work to go in and dig through the ancestral stuff, but it doesn't have to take forever. inside of Sovereign Queen, we have one extremely powerful module that is a powerful experience that will be kind of like that medicine journey, except there's no medicine in it. It's all energy. Your body knows exactly what to produce. And I walk you through it all, and we're ready for it. And you have the tissues and the water and the trash can. And so in case of puking, because that does happen, like it is a whole event one time, and that is out, and you are done, right? Now we are activating your abilities, your powers, your mission, your purpose. We're integrating things, we're utilizing things. But until we have that out of the way, until you have shifted, until the healing has occurred, then in a profound and deep way, which, I like to be efficient. So it's like we go in there, we go deep, we do the fucking work, we go 100%, we get it done. And then now we're ready to shift. Now we're ready to do the work. But without that, man, it takes forever. It takes forever because you have to you're doing the work on the surface. This is surface healing. But if you don't get to the root cause of the stuff, which is always in our cells, it's always in our DNA, it's always in our blood. If we don't get to the root of it and have an experience that changes our molecular structure inside, our cellular structure inside, like if we don't do that, it doesn't change. We're just kind of peeling the top off, right? But it's not changing on the inside. In this course, you change the inside. It's the core kind of healing, right? And so we do all of this work to get to that point. So I have to teach you how to hold your psychic channels. Everybody has channels all around us. You have psychic channels, you have connection channels, you have intuitive channels, you have healing channels. That's the reason why a lot of empaths, when we go, like you are out, and you come home and you're depleted, or you get wild information about other people and you're like, what is going on? Like, I really wish I could get this about me or about my next steps, right? You have to learn to work with those channels. We have channels, they're real, right? Once you get the channels in order and you get your energy in order and you get your alignment in, and I teach you the ways to do this, which is a game changer. Your energy is straight, your energy is in alignment, and then we do the deep healing work because then it's effective. Then it stays, then nobody hijacks it, right? And there's a profound experience of shifting. Because if you go and do this without parameters, without intentions, without understanding what's actually happening inside of you, you're going to have this crazy wild experience that then you don't know how to integrate. In this course, we integrate it, right? We actually do all of the work with our blood to integrate and to create magic. And I'll show you how easy it is, but you have to shift first. Otherwise, it's just, things that we do. But it's different when you're shifted in the experience of it, in the knowledge of it, in the embodiment of it. Okay, so yeah, very, very cool. So this is for you. If all of the, if you feel the power of the witches and the priestesses like reawakening inside of you, if you're just kind of like into that, like I almost want to call it like that wrath of a woman, like that deeper, sacred side, like that Lilith energy. I was talking to a friend recently. It's kind of like that black moon Lilith energy, right? It's this power that has been just hidden because it's so profound inside of us, but now we're learning how to reawaken it. And a lot of people, when they tap into that power, they go dark. They go to like the darker arts of spirituality, which is not necessary, because when you have a whole lot of power and you learn how to hold your frequency, you don't need to go dark. You can utilize that power for good, right? But you see a lot of people going like full black and full, like, in the underworld kind of stuff. And it's like it's very clear also in Hollywood, right? Everybody has that phase where they go like dark. They start out and they're all shiny and bright, and then they like get all this power and they go like crazy. And you're like, oh my God, they've shifted. They're on the other side. A lot of light workers also do this. When you realize the source of power and what you can do with that power, right? Like, it's kind of like that Darth Vader story, the Star Wars stories. It's like there's a lot of power to be harnessed. Who are you on the inside, and what have you set up inside of yourself in order to do this in a way that is congruent with your values, with your truth, with your mission, with your purpose, which is all inside your blood, then you're holding real power, which in turn affects your life, your family's life, your community's life, the world, and ascension as a whole. Now we're changing the world, right? In the way that we came to, in the frequency unlocking that we came to do. So I'm type A positive. What are the qualities for that? So Tess, understand that this is, I'm going to give you a very short answer, right? But there's a lot to it. When you're a type A positive, your commitment is profoundly to the earth. So you have, I know just by knowing that, I could tell you so much about you and what you're capable of doing. You definitely have sorcery kind of in you. You're like an alchemist. You have this ability. Like you have it in you, you know you have power, and you probably haven't figured out how to harness it, right? And you can't, like, there's a quite yet, because it's profound. It's power that comes from the earth and the ancestors. So anybody that has A positive blood, your roots are deep. Your commitment to the planet and the earth is huge, right? When you learn how to actually like unfold that, it makes like a whole lot of difference. And so that's, you know, you start to understand that, and it's, there's so much to it. But I have done this own research. You won't find it anywhere on the internet unless it's one of my students that's teaching it with my permission, right? And the reason why, it's because it took me years to figure it out for myself. This is research that started in 2011, okay? Back in 2011, so pre-2012, I started, like, things started happening in my reality, and I needed to understand the blood. And since then, I've done so much research, so much understanding, and I've mapped so many things. And then I started with students. Any of you that were in the Metaphysical Mastermind Live actually were in the live of this work with me in 2020. We actually started to do like bigger work and mapping it, right? And so I literally tracked blood types, superpowers, expressed powers, and if there's a match, because I had my own theories, and then I started tracking it with all my clients, all students, right, in the way that it expressed. And I was like, holy fuck, right? The info, because that's what it feels like. I was like, the information that came in is correct, right? Then I started teaching it. So it took me years, from 2011, 8 years, 2011 to 2019, to compile this information on my own. And I started teaching it in 2020, and it only made it even more real. And now from 2020, this course was born, Sovereign Queen, in 2021, I believe, or 2022. Now I understood it on a deeper level. And we get into, like, you know, the blood of Christ, the blood on the earth, like the blood, the wars, the sacrifices. I mean, all of that. It's all related. As I've been saying lately, there is nothing that you see in the world that is unrelated. It is all related. This is ascension. It's all inclusive. The way that we operate on the inside, each and every one of us, absolutely manifests on the outside collective reality. When enough of us change on the inside, right, then it changes on the outside. And this is the whole thing. Tess says, wow, thank you so much. I feel like that. Yeah, I know, because it's in your blood, right? Isn't that amazing? And I'm wanting to know more. And there isn't any info. There isn't any info because this is the work of my life. The things, you guys, the things that I teach you inside the courses, you're not finding on the internet. There is no YouTube, right? And they're copyrighted, and I do give my students permission to teach them should any of you feel a connection. And I've had requests. So some of my students have asked, hey, can I use this? Hey, can I teach this? Like, this is, you know, but you have to understand what you're dealing with, because I have spent years documenting all these things. This is the work of my life. Maybe one day I'll publish a book on this, but it's like, it's so powerful, right? That I've kept it so sacred. And so go and read. Tess, I would tell you, definitely go and read the page to Sovereign Queen, because it's like, now you start to understand it, right? And you're like, whoa, this gets even deeper. And the more tools we have, to everybody, for example, when you first start to understand, like people understand astrology or human design or like different facets of things, there's different ways of giving meaning to reality that are in our birth date. Okay, so the birth date is very important. There's also like numerology. There's lots of different like ways to understand deeply, right, what we're here to do. But man, our blood is our inheritance. That is our human inheritance, right? That's why I believe they stopped telling. Once upon a time, they used to tell you on birth certificates, like what your blood type was. Now they don't. They keep that stuff as hush because this is where our power comes from. As we activate strands of DNA, what do you think is happening to our blood? Our blood is remembering things like the water of the earth is now unlocking knowledge, right? And like water and sound, it's like this whole thing that's happening in the water of the planet, because the water holds the knowledge of the earth. The blood holds the knowledge of the human line consciousness. So there are secrets inside of ourselves that want to come up. It's like, when you say, ooh, my blood is boiling, like we have these wild ways of saying things, but it's like, it's because inside of us something, right, we know. And so our blood is starting to speak. It's like, it's starting to like, ooh, and we get to learn to wield that, because otherwise, I haven't said this stuff in a while because I feel like so many people are having, like, there's so much going on in ascension, right? And sometimes it's like, oh man, all of these Pluto moves in the past couple of years, like, whew, there's been like all sorts of things going on in everybody's personal life. But the truth is, like, let's remember that we incarnated on this planet in this moment of time, in this very precise moment where time would unlock timelines and we would be able to reconcile this knowledge from all layers of multidimensional reality. And we'd be able to unlock, we each of us bet on ourselves to unlock the coding inside of us to remember who the fuck we are. But then there's all these things in life that, are distracting, that they like kind of come in and they're like, oh my God, like there's so many things. And it's not that human life is not here to be enjoyed. We are definitely here. It's like, what an opportunity to enjoy and create and manifest the fuck out of life and find our divine partnerships and enjoy life. But remember that your soul and your spirit and your mission, especially if you're attracted to the kind of conversations that I have, because I am clear, right? Your number one is always remembering who the fuck you are and reactivating the layers of knowledge that run in you. We get to have all of the bloodlines inside of us, on like the coding and the knowledge unlock together with the energy. It's like, the axis, like, the bloodline comes, through time, and our knowledge comes through space. We are responsible to do this work, no matter what the fuck is going on in reality. Otherwise, we feel the emptiness and the void and the blocks. When we don't do this, shit doesn't move in life. Sometimes we think that outside forces and outside circumstances are more important, and it feels like we have fires to put out. When our internal spiritual alignment is not on point and we are not at the edge of what we're capable of doing, life on earth, the material world, starts to break down. It's just how it is, because we're on mission. We are here for this ascension. And man, should we forget this shit and, and move through consciousness on the other side, we're going to have to fucking do it all over again. Like, no, thank you. Right? Like, it's like, let's remember what we came for and let's actually do the work, in the time that we have. And also, quite frankly, I don't know what the fuck they're doing right now with the frequency control and everything, but it's so much harder now to establish a link up with your divine self than it ever was before. Let me rephrase. It was harder pre-2012 because we hadn't emerged in the galaxy. And so there were layers, but those were natural layers. I feel like they were layers that were occurring naturally. Then as a lot of us awakened, right, especially recently, 2017, 2018, 2019, like there's been waves. It's like they've fucked with, it's the 5G, it's the frequency modulations that happen. All of that stuff, it's pumping, it wants your attention all right here and right here and right here. If you don't know how to hold your energetic channels around your head, if you don't know how to hold your space around you, your blood gets imprinted with all this crap. And then all of a sudden you start thinking deprecating thoughts that imprint in your cells. And then you manifest this reality that you're not here for, right? You're a match for a reality that was created by the collective unconscious and the broadcasts of systems that are distorting this reality. So now whenever you connect, you have to move through all of this stuff, right? It takes those of us that came to be way showers. This is why this knowledge is so important. It's so sacred and it's so invaluable, because once you understand it, man, you can move mountains, right? When you learn to understand the power inside of you. Like I have changed my life in ways beyond what I could dream of when I was younger, like in my younger days, right? I always knew I was meant for something special. Maybe like you guys had this feeling like I'm different. I'm meant for something. I don't know what it is, right? But I'm meant for something. There's something about me that's fucking different because none of these people get me. I don't belong here, right? Like there's something different. But it's like I've been able to utilize, right? This knowledge, I've paid attention because I had to pay attention because I wasn't before, and then I was made to pay attention, which happens. These are the dark nights of the soul when we don't pay attention. And I have been able to discover the wildest things, and change my life in amazing, extraordinary ways. I have traveled. I have healed myself in so many ways. I used to be sick all the time. Now I'm not. I've healed my health. I function in a different realm. I started flying first class, right? Because my time and my experience of life is important. My quality of life is better. I've been able to experience the higher levels of living and actually create ways to teach people how to do the same so that we can clear through, all of the baselines of this world. I mean, it's just amazing, but it starts here. It starts with this stuff. It starts inside, right? Otherwise, you're just spinning up. There's so many people that can do it in so many ways. Money can be made in a lot of ways, and this is not about money, but it translates to money. Because there's a lot of people that don't have your starseed or family of light mission, right? Like family of light is all of us that came to realign the stargates and all the portals and all the coding on this earth, right? Family of light, like the consciousness known as light. So we are the soul family that came here for it. Not everybody did, man. Not everybody. Some people are here, new little babies of consciousness. That's not their job. They're the background people, right? This is it sounds kind of, but make with it what you will. It just means that your purpose, don't compare yourself to anybody else, because if you know you're here for it, you know you have to show up for it. And it will never make sense to anybody else unless they have this coding inside and they know it, right? And you feel like you have this thing inside. And a lot of us try to ignore it for a really long time. But then if you learn to access it, if you learn how to utilize your power, if you learn these things and actually do this work, man, the world opens up in a whole other way. There's a lot of people that do it in very different ways, but if you are meant for frequency, connection, if you're meant for reestablishing divine knowledge on this planet, if you're family of light, this is the way, right? Otherwise, it doesn't happen. It doesn't unlock. You have to actually do this work, because if we were to get the fabulous life right away, a lot of people forget about this stuff because that's what happens, right? So it was kind of set up this way. And for a lot of people, it's hard to balance in a sense because we're human, but it's really not, because the most important part is learning how to have this knowledge, but it's kind of this catch-22, and to remember and to reawaken our superpowers, our abilities, and all of this inside. And it's like, at some point you just have to choose, because sometimes I remember when I was like working all the time in corporate America and I was so tired and like there's so many things happening in life, and I wouldn't make the time to invest in myself, you know, for certain things until everything fell apart in my world. And then I had to. And I remember it, like I spent the last little bit of money I had because I was like, something has to fucking change. And I went out on a limb, you know, as we say, and I invested in myself, and I had a series of breakthroughs with like my mentor, Gary Acevito, that I talk about a lot, who does like in-person kind of retreats. And like all of a sudden I was like, whoa, right? Like, and it changed my life. And then I had to go and do something with it. And so on the shifts that I received, and, you know, like I invested something wild, you know, when you don't have anything and you're like, now it has to work. And then it did. And then when I didn't understand, you know, again, then everything got taken away again. Like I have this thing in my life, because it's like, you have to, and it's kind of a catch-22, because you have to balance it. This is the great balancing of things, because when we don't have financial freedom, right? When we don't have abundance, money is constantly a conversation in life, because everything becomes a function of money. But it's really not, because it's a function of who you are on the inside that attracts your reality. But if you don't know that, right, then it's kind of like this thing. And that's why I have courses and things. And historically here, I actually taught many things about how to clear the blocks for money and recode for money and switching the beliefs for money and everything else. But it never comes from like, you know, this is what you do for money. I take you through profound experiences that change the cellular makeup of who you are. And you are so shifted that your relationship with money actually shifts. That's how we do it as light workers. That's how we do it as family of light. You can't do it like the normal fucking people do it, because it won't work for you. It just doesn't work for us. Because we came for different purposes. It used to drive me bananas, because I was like, why can I not do it like that? And there's all these things on the internet about making money, and it's like, that's not it. Because otherwise we would forget our purpose and our mission. Our coding is different. Once you start to understand that, now, instead of, you know, chasing the money, now you're chasing quote unquote, but you're seeking and you're desiring, right, these deeper understandings, especially when you have someone who is an ascension teacher that has figured out how to translate the ascension, the depth of this deep, powerful ascension knowledge into a human life of abundance and of prosperity. Like, fuck, I think it's pretty extraordinary, because usually people got one or the other, but I am here to do it fucking all. And I constantly translate all of our galactic stuff into this abundance, into this prosperity, into this wealth, because I am so here for it. But it starts with all of this deep shit in our blood. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is the root of it. I'm not here doing the money things to do the money things. I think money is great, and it allows you and affords you like amazing things in our world. But it's never about that. It's always about the inside and this stuff. Okay, I've had my moment. I feel very strongly about that. But it's a choice. So the bottom line of all of this conversation is that it's a choice. It's a choice, it's a choice, it's a choice. You have to decide, and you have to learn how to not let your mind run you and your thoughts run you and the collective unconsciousness of scarcity run you, right? And at some point there comes a moment where you know, just like I did with my mentor Gary, and you invest in yourself. And it was some ridiculous amount of money for me at the time, especially. I had never made more than like $100,000 a year, right, at all. And I remember I invested something like 30,000, like his whole program. And I was like, right? Like it was like that. So sometimes things like that are required, right? I don't have any programs that are like that. Maybe one day I will, but I feel like everything, like it's an exchange of all of the literal blood, sweat, and tears in a sense, but also unlocking and the way that I've lived, like that's gold. Learning to do this, learning to actually do this in this way, right? Why would you learn something from a person who doesn't have what you want in life, right? It's always kind of what I look at. It's like you can learn this much, but then you have to figure out, you can't receive the full activation, because if you learn something from someone and you don't really, it's hard to think about your friends. Do you ever take advice, like relationship advice, from somebody that's constantly in breakdown and trauma mode? No, why would you? They know nothing of holding a beautiful, peaceful relationship. They're constantly in trauma mode. They're not the friend that you go to for that, right? You'll talk to somebody that has a kind of relationship that you actually desire to see in your life. So why would you take money advice from somebody that's not making it? Why would you take ascension advice from somebody that's not ascending? And by advice, I mean coaching, and I mean learn with, and I mean study with, and I mean courses, right? Okay, now I've taken it all the way. Makes so much sense, right? Amazing. How did you segue from corporate to business? Yeah, it's been the toughest part for me. So, Grotto, I don't know your full name, but Grotto. Okay, so it wasn't pretty. I'll tell you the truth. So, and when I finally figured it out, I made a course about it, which is called Goddess on Mission. But here is the truth of what it looked like, is that I figured out in 2007, this is a long time ago, I became like a Reiki master. I studied all of these frequency things. I went deep into the healing. This is when, I met my mentor, Gary, and I did all sorts of stuff. And I met people that were like, they could see auras and they could do things. I was like, what? Which back then was like mind blowing. So I learned all these modalities. I got certified in a lot of things. And then I was at the same time in corporate America, not really corporate America, you guys might know this. I used to work as a new faces agent at Wilhelmina modeling agency, out of all places, okay? So, and this is true, you can see it on my LinkedIn. So I was at this modeling agency, and all the models knew that I was like this Reiki man. They knew there was something different about me. So I was a closet healer, and that's what happened. So they would come to me when their back hurt. They would come to me when they had to manifest a thing, right? And I started practicing all this stuff on these girls that I trained and I helped and I got jobs for, right? And I kind of just did this, I would prepare them for, the modeling, which the modeling world is crazy. But that was my corporate, part of my corporate career. I worked a lot in that. And so, I did my part to be a mom, right, to these girls that were going out there on the runway or on the print work and whatever. So I was this closet healer behind the scenes. At some point, that wasn't enough anymore. I did that for years. Friends knew to come to me. I would take personal clients. I never talked about it unless somehow people knew from friend to friend, right? Like the word would spread, and I never talked about it because I was like, I'm going to lose my job. Like Wilhelmina is a big corporate kind of a thing. So it's like nobody knew. Unless you knew, then you were in. That's how it was. I was a closet spiritual healer. Well, God didn't think that was good. My higher self was like done with it. And I kept on, like this kind of, and in the meantime, I changed. Like I was working at a different, like I had changed industries in the meantime. I worked in law. I worked at a legal office. So I went from models to athletes and in law, and I was working with, like, it never really matters, right? Because it's kind of like a job. It's like, I've done cool things in corporate America, but again, remember, I never made more than like $100,000 in corporate America, right? So, but I had cool experiences. I had like really diverse jobs. So anyways, so I'm there. And God's like not having it. Like I had to learn certain things. And when I say that, it's because God, the universe, like higher self, however you think of it, it's not the point can come where it's like everything gets taken away from you because you're not on path. And that's what happened to me. So I wasn't listening. I was doing it behind the scenes. I was the girl at the law firm that would go and tell people their horoscopes, that would talk to them about their charts, right? So by this point, my abilities had evolved, right? And I made a friend for life there. You guys know her. Her name is Rochelle. And she's one of my soul sisters. So I know I was meant to be there, but it wasn't, right? I was still doing the work behind the scenes. One day, everything went away. I had never been fired from a job. I was out of the blue, right? I was like things started falling apart. I lost everything. My job, my husband, the like we had, he asked me for a divorce. Everything came in the same day. It was our time. By all means, we had done extensive work on it, but it's just the sequence of events of where it happened, right? And so because I raised a stepdaughter, I wanted her to stay in the house. So I knew I was going to have to move out. So it was like the house, the husband, the job, the child, everything in like a day. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. And at the same time, I had been like, I was out with mono. I was so wiped out from work that I had, this is a true story, I had mononucleosis for 9 months. I was so wiped. I could barely handle the stress of it all. Like it was just, there was a lot of toxic stuff in my life at that time, and with family dynamics and in my marriage at the time and everything. And then because I wasn't listening, I had to be like in bed, wiped out. And then I developed like endometriosis. I developed all sorts of stuff. And I was about to go and get some crazy surgery. And I had this moment where everything hit me. Like the job loss, the divorce, like the fact that I was going to have to walk away from this daughter that you guys still now see. Her name is Ari. And I love her like if she was my own. She's like my spirit child. And everything went away. And my body was breaking down. And I had this moment, it was 3 days before a scheduled surgery, major surgery for immune function disorders and endometriosis, where they burned like all this stuff. And I had this moment where I dropped down to my knees, I remember, and I looked at myself in the mirror, right? Because I have like, the mirrors that go from the floor. And I was like, what the fuck? Like I had this moment, I was like, what do I need to do? And I like went back because I knew I had these skills, and I got all my power together and all my skills together, and it all added up to that moment. And I was like, holy fuck, I can do better. I haven't been listening. In that moment, everything changed. I canceled the surgery. I threw away all of my pills, all of the medication that I was on. I took my power back. That was a big moment. I took my power back, and I decided I was going to heal myself, that I had enough skills, and I was going to go into like, a moment of like within myself. And I actually had like an amazing divorce, which, is awesome because not very many people say that. And so I asked my ex-husband at the time, I was like, I need 3 months. Give me 3 months in the house. I need to just do things for myself. I'm going to be without a job. Like I'm going to, like I had a plan, and I was like, I got to figure myself out. And so I used my card. I went into debt. I learned everything that I could. Like it was like, and I was studying, I was in my body. I was downloading things. I was writing things. This was 2017. Okay. And it was like, and everything changed, and all my knowledge and all the things added up. And then after that, I had a plan for work, and I was scared out of my mind, and I knew nothing. I had sent out applications to all sorts of wild positions. I had such qualification. Nobody would hire me because they weren't meant to. I almost worked for and this is a true story. I even applied to work with the Leo King, David Palmer. You guys may know him. He's an astrologer. He's all over Hollywood. And I had made it. He was looking for readers. And I was like, oh, how fun. Maybe I'll do that. And I'll work on his, like with him on his platform. Thank God I didn't, right? Because then Moon Babes was born. But like in the meantime, I got to know him and whatever, and his process, and he's doing his own thing. I'm not quite sure what he's up to now, but it was interesting to learn that. And I got so close, but it also wasn't that. So I was like, I need to do something in this realm. I actually need to put my knowledge on the line. And I was like, I'm going to teach people how to do this stuff. So I went out and I actually asked 2 people, one former client and one friend, for an investment. I had zero fucking money. I had nothing at that point. And I was so sure of this plan that I put together. I was like, I'm going to teach people how to access the 13 chakras. This was the beginning of the Sacred Chakras journey. I'm going to teach people, like everything I had in me. I knew it so much, and I knew it so well because I had done all this work. My health was good. I had recoded myself. I didn't need drugs. I didn't need the surgery. I had healed myself completely and changed everything about me. In 3 months, I was ready. I had manifested a house. Like I had applied all my skills. So I knew I had something. So then I went out and asked for investments for 2 people. And I said, you're completely at risk here. It was like one of the wildest things I've ever done. But I believed so much in what I was doing that they invested in me. And all of a sudden I had $10,000 to start with. And that's how Moon Babes was born. And I was like, whew, I'm going to do this, right? And I didn't know what I was doing, but that's how I started a business. And Moon Babes was born in 2017. And I started doing like events, but that's how it was. It doesn't have to be that dramatic. Ever. I have like moved through the transition with so many other clients, but I had to learn the hard way how we do it, how you teach the things that you're meant to teach, what it is that you're meant to teach, your mission, your purpose, understanding these things, right? It's like, it's so important because once you understand those things, and then you know the impact that you want to make on the planet, and you've experienced it and you've lived it, now you've embodied it, now it's so easy to teach. But a lot of people try and do this transition after taking one course or having one experience. All of a sudden, they want to be ascension teachers. Well, that never works out because you haven't embodied the teachings. So once I figured this stuff out, then I taught inside of, and I figured out this is how it went. I taught how to, and by the way, do you know what happened when I launched my very first course? I was scared out of my mind. It was a Sacred Chakras journey. And I was like, I'm going to talk about archangels and angels and, like seeing beyond the veil. This is 2017. People weren't talking about these things yet. I was like, I'm going to die. Everybody's going to unfriend me like on Facebook. But at that point, that was it. I couldn't do anything else. And do you know what happened when I launched my first course, which was priced $330, which the same course is now like, I think it's a $1,500 course because it's grown so much. But, I made $10,000. That was my first $10,000 launch. Wild, huh? Because it was how it was meant to go. Everything added up, but I had to work for it. And then once I understood, right, and then I launched another thing, and it was called the crash course. And then I launched like another, like smaller things, and I started seeing how this was working. And at the same time, I had personal, like one-on-one clients I was taking all the time, because people would come to me with the weirdest things. To this day, people come to me because they don't know, they don't have answers to anything else. My sessions are like the wildest sessions. They're like, oh no, I think we got stopped. Hold on. Are we here? You guys, okay, I think we're going over an hour. Yeah, that's the true story, you guys. I work at a law firm and this resonates so much for me. Yeah. Hi. I think I need to jump back on. I'll finish the Q&A. Yeah. Yeah, they are such a huge modeling agency. Okay, I'm looking at all of this. Okay, hop back on and I will finish the answer because I want to make sure this downloads. Okay. My first course with you is Sovereign Queen and I'm always in freaking love. Amazing. I love that. Okay, you guys, from this live, if you're watching this live and we're in the story, I'm going to go and hop on and finish this Q&A because I feel like we haven't done this in like so long and I love connecting with you all. But go and look at Sovereign Queen. Okay, moonbabetribe.com/Sovereign Queen. It is epic. It is so powerful. And it will be the catalyst to the whole new journey of understanding yourself in this whole new way. And it's extraordinary. This year, we're going to take it to the next level. So ask me questions. We start on the 17th. I love you. And the link is also here in my bio at Sonia G _Godfrey. Okay? Mwah. I'm going to come back on for a Q&A.